Resident Evil 5 Remake, this is the one game I've wanted more than anything else. Not just because of the action, the story, or the memories, but because of one major reason: Albert Wesker. Wesker is easily one of the most iconic villains in Resident Evil history. His presence, his personality, his power, and the final showdown against Chris Redfield made Resident Evil 5 unforgettable for millions of fans. But recently, things have started looking complicated for the future of a Resident Evil 5 remake. Right now, Capcom is extremely busy with the Resident Evil franchise. We already know Resident Evil Code Veronica Remake is officially happening, and the exciting part is that both Albert Wesker and Chris Redfield are expected to return. For many fans, this remake could be the beginning of Capcom rebuilding Wesker's story for a new generation. However, when it comes to Resident Evil 5 Remake, the situation is not looking as clear. According to insider Dusk Golem, Capcom currently isn't planning to remake two specific Resident Evil games: Resident Evil 5 and Resident Evil 6. This is surprising because in my previous Resident Evil roadmap video, we talked about reports suggesting Capcom had multiple remakes planned for the future. The rumored lineup included Resident Evil Code Veronica Remake, Resident Evil 0 Remake, and potentially Resident Evil 5 Remake. But now, it looks like Capcom might be going in a completely different direction. Instead of jumping straight into Resident Evil 5, Capcom is reportedly considering another remake of the original Resident Evil. This means they might want to revisit the beginning of the story before moving forward with bigger events. According to reports, the reason Capcom doesn't want to remake Resident Evil 5 and Resident Evil 6 right now is because they want to focus more on the future of the franchise instead of constantly returning to older games. And honestly, I can understand Resident Evil 6. Resident Evil 6 was extremely divisive. Some players enjoyed the action and characters, but many fans felt it moved too far away from survival horror. So I understand why Capcom might not be interested in bringing that game back anytime soon. But Resident Evil 5, that's a completely different story. Resident Evil 5 has massive remake potential. Yes, the original game was more action-focused, but a remake could completely change that. Capcom could make the atmosphere darker, increase the horror elements, improve the story, and give Albert Wesker the modern treatment he deserves. Just imagine Wesker with today's graphics, improved facial animations, a more serious tone, and modern Resident Evil gameplay. That alone would create incredible hype. The rivalry between Chris Redfield and Albert Wesker is one of the most important conflicts in the entire franchise, and a remake could make that story even more emotional and intense. But maybe Capcom has another plan. Maybe they don't want to remake Resident Evil 5 right now, because they are saving Albert Wesker for something much bigger. There are already many discussions about the future of Resident Evil after Resident Evil 9. The franchise has introduced so many experiments, viruses, and advanced technology that bringing certain characters back is not impossible in this universe. With concepts like cloning and bioengineering existing in Resident Evil's world, some fans believe Capcom could find a way to bring Albert Wesker back in the future, possibly in a major game like Resident Evil 10, instead of only revisiting Wesker's ending. Maybe Capcom wants to rebuild his character and prepare him for the next chapter of Resident Evil. Of course, nothing is confirmed yet. Plans can always change, especially with a franchise as huge as Resident Evil. But for now, it looks like fans waiting for Resident Evil 5 Remake may have to wait much longer. Still, one thing is clear: Albert Wesker remains one of Resident Evil's greatest villains. And sooner or later, Capcom knows fans want to see him return. The only question is, will it happen through a Resident Evil 5 remake or something completely new in the future?